Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Vice President Kamala Harris is seeing a shift in likely voters in the polling numbers compared to former President Donald Trump in North Carolina. A day after former President Trump's visit to Asheville,
we have stupid people like Kamala and Joe running our country.
Findings in a new national poll show a shift in support.
North Carolinians know that Donald Trump left our communities out to dry as president of the United States.
With a 3% margin of error, Emerson College polling shows Vice President Kamala Harris holds a 4% lead over Trump with likely North Carolina voters.
Kamala Harris has some momentum right now.
While studying the polls in between classes at Coastal Carolina, political science professor Dr. Gibbs Knott tells us the Tar Heel state is one of several that are highlighted to play a key role in the outcome of the presidential election.
North Carolina is one of those competitive states, maybe not quite as competitive as Georgia and Wisconsin and Michigan, but kind of that next tier of swing state.
Since last month, the survey revealed North Carolinian support for Trump decreased by 2 points among likely voters, while Harris outperformed Biden's latest numbers. Trump previously held a steady lead against Biden in polls before a new competitor entered the conversation.
And now it's like, Kamala.
But we know it's going to be a fight, and everybody out here is ready to get in it with us and to be able to pull out voters across our state.
He's going to stay ahead in the polls, and that he may beat Kamala Harris by more than he would have beaten President Biden.
Because either candidate could win the state, both parties are focusing a majority of their campaign tactics in North Carolina and nearby swing states. But ultimately, it's not up to the hypothetical polls. The decision will come this November.
We don't elect people based on polls. We elect people based on vote counts.
The former president will be in Pennsylvania this weekend to host a rally. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris will be in Raleigh on Friday to discuss her plan for the economy.
And she was. She's just concluded her economic plan, the reveal, if you will, if you must, if you may, in Raleigh. It was spectacular. There were more than a dozen policy proposals from Kamala Harris that would bring down the cost of living. Yes, living has gotten very expensive in every nook and cranny of our lives. And it's because Donald Trump screwed up COVID so bad that supply chains just, fell apart, broke. Did you see him yesterday? Yesterday he was standing in front of a bunch of, products like Wheaties and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I don't even understand what he was doing with these groceries. He never spoke about the groceries. He never compared prices on the groceries. Listening to him talk about groceries is hysterical because that man has never, think about that, in a grocery store in his entire life. He has people go to McDonald's for him. This is before Uber Eats, okay? This is before, any of the delivery services. He would just staff it out. Go get me, a McDonald's, 10 Happy Meals and a lot of ketchup. You know what I mean? But anyway, he was standing in front of all these groceries, and I actually came to the conclusion that those were the things that were not on the shelves when he was president. I can't even imagine, what he was doing with those groceries except to illustrate how much he failed during COVID. I mean, he was talking about prices in the stores and everything. Just remember, when he was president, there was nothing in the stores. People literally have post-traumatic stress disorder about this whole period in our lives. And it is a crying shame because now he gets to rewrite it in his most favorable light. And there really isn't one. How do you put 1 million dead Americans in a favorable light? How do you show empty store shelves in a favorable light? I guess the way he did it, he puts the groceries on a table, never talks about them because they weren't there during the COVID. Anyway, she followed him today and trolled him in North Carolina, where the polls have turned around. She is now leading. This is the Emerson poll. Listen, again, polls should not guide you in any way, shape, or form. except to show you a trajectory, except to show you a momentum for a candidate or another candidate or no candidate, right? People are not interested. People are not following. People are not, likely voters. You can't find registered voters, whatever it is, right? Just the trajectory, just the direction that people's votes are going in. Now, it's all going in her direction. I mean, I played you yesterday at the beginning of the show. I still have it if you want to hear it. Frank Luntz actually saying that the Democrats have such a strong candidate. The attributes of Kamala Harris are so strong with so many voters, so many women voters, so many voters of color, so many voters of middle class, bearing, so many lower middle class voters, even rich voters, business owner voters, like every nook and cranny of the voters was like trending for her, to the point where poor Frank Luntz was like licking his wounds on CNBC yesterday saying, so now I think we can actually conclude that the House and the Senate are really, in play, and the Democrats have a real good shot at taking both. I mean, wow, it was breathtaking. And now this little poll from a local, Emerson, is a North Carolina University poll, and it's a legit poll. And they're saying things have switched, So she goes to Asheville today. Okay, she was in Asheville just now. She just concluded, like 14 minutes ago. Okay. And she laid out about a dozen extremely aggressive progressive policies that would benefit the middle class and the almost middle class and the poor. Okay. The upper middle class, the wannabe almost in the middle class, and the poor who need a little bit of help, okay? And everything that she laid out was in service of lowering the costs of living. She proposed to eliminate medical debt. Now, you know that the Biden administration with Kamala Harris decided that medical debt should not count against ye on your credit report, right? That if you carry a whole lot of medical debt, it should not be counted towards lowering your credit score because you have this outstanding debt. Well, in fact, she went further on this, and she said, what we want to do is eliminate it. We want to work with hospitals and states and insurance carriers, etc. Bring down the costs that they're charging in the first place for these procedures. And then, if you still can't pay for them, eliminate the debt on the back end so people can move on with their lives, okay? She talked about the grocery store and the price gouging. God, she is her and Elizabeth Warren. See, this is why I was for Elizabeth Warren in the last cycle. Until Biden became obviously the nominee. And then, of course, he got my vote, and he turned out to be 10 times better than I ever hoped or dreamed or could have thought that he would be. But the reason why I was on the side of Warren is the consumer protection senator. So is Kamala Harris. They're all about consumer protection. And the two of them have laid out all these policies that benefit consumers, that benefit families, that benefit children, that benefit people, seniors, and pay for it all with a giant wealth tax. It's actually a tiny wealth tax on giant wealth. That's the correct way to say it. And these little taxes on every dollar over $100 million, these little, 1% taxes on dollars over $1 million or dollars over $500 million. I mean, who could feel sorry for somebody that would be taxed for every dollar that they make over $500 million? Like, really? You're going to cry for them? You're going to, and this is how they pay for doing all this. The other thing that they do is they literally create a federal trade commission that works to ban price gouging. They pass legislation. They give those tools to a federal trade commission, which is toothless right now. It serves almost no purpose because it has no authority to clamp down on price gouging. It really doesn't. She gives them that authority. That's a good thing.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We all know that prices went up during the pandemic when the supply chains shut down and failed. But our supply chains have now improved, and prices are still too high. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today than it did before the pandemic. Ground beef is up almost 50%. Many of the big food companies are seeing their highest profits in 2 decades. And while many grocery chains pass along these savings, others still aren't. Look, I know most businesses are creating jobs, contributing to our economy, and playing by the rules. But some are not. And that's just not right. And we need to take action when that is the case.
Pause for applause, pause for applause. Now give them the good news.
As Attorney General in California, I went after companies that illegally increased prices, including wholesalers that inflated the price of prescription medication, and companies that conspired with competitors to keep prices of electronics high. I won more than $1 billion for consumers. So believe me, as president, I will go after the bad actors. And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food.
Gouging.
My plan will include new penalties for opportunistic companies that exploit crises and break the rules, and we will support smaller food businesses that are trying to play by the rules and get ahead. We will help the food industry become more competitive, because I believe competition is the lifeblood of our economy. More competition means lower prices for you and your families.
It really does. I mean, the idea that trust busting has to happen here when you know that there's 3 major grocery chains in this country, and it's Kroger's, Albertsons, and Walmart, and you know that Kroger's wants to merge with Albertsons, and I promise you she will never, ever, and a Democratic House and Senate will never, ever, and a fully empowered Federal Trade Commission with legislation backing it and its enforcement authorities will never, ever allow a merger like that to happen, because you and me have been taken advantage of for long enough. And, you know, they've been riding on this, we have broken supply chain thing for entirely too long. And she knows it. The only thing I, was sad about was that she bumpered on the word gouging and called it gauging, but that's okay, because we know what she means and we know what she will do, and we know that she is a very successful litigator against price gouging and against inflating prices based on not the cost of business, but just because we can collude with other companies that do what we do, and there's only 2 others, and we can keep the price artificially high even though it has absolutely nothing to do with the cost of doing business. That is what's happening to us. Joe Biden talked about greed and pricing for a while now, okay? Although most people never really heard it because Joe Biden was very difficult to listen to, and a lot of people just tuned him out, even though the content of what he was saying was amazing. The quality of how he said it was amazing. It was just not anything anybody wanted to hear. And that's just a sad, awful truth about having to be president on television. However, she and he both are of like mind when it comes to artificial price gouging and greed and greedy pricing and collusion and, like 3 major chains controlling everything that's on the shelves that's available to you. What she's saying is if we had smaller grocery chains, if we had more grocery chains, if we had, you know, grocery chains that were more local, grocery chains that were more farm-oriented, grocery chains that were more responsive to the communities that they served and that they were getting subsidized the same way the big ones do, or that, we had more meat producers, we had more poultry producers, we had more hog producers. You know, if we had more, because we don't. We went over this yesterday. There's like 4 producers of meat, poultry, and hogs in this entire country. This is a country of glorious farmland. And when people get upset because they hear that, foreign governments are trying to buy, the farmland, that should be like the last thing that ever happens here, okay? The idea that the American companies own all the farmland should really get your panties in a bunch, because that's what makes the price of ground beef. And, they eat it. This is the crazy thing, is Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they each have their own view of how to, fix ground beef so that it's delicious. They don't agree on this, Oh, no, it's a big difference between the president and the vice president, who I can't even call them elect yet because they're not elect yet. But you know what I mean. They disagree.
Like I have white guy tacos and
what is
like
that?
black,
like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota,
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to expand my food knowledge.
We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Black pepper is the top of the spice, chart for, guy from Minnesota. But yes, they disagree on how to flavor ground beef. And, he's a purist, is what it is. But honestly, these proposals are amazing. So ban price gouging on groceries, cap prescription drug prices, not just for people inside Medicare, which is currently, a go, right? So that insulin has been capped for Medicare after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, because you needed legislation in order to give the Medicare Trust Fund that represents 66 million people who buy prescription drugs. You needed to pass legislation to allow negotiations to begin, to occur, even in the... it was always a ridiculous notion. When I first found that out, like when Bush was president, that you weren't allowed, Medicare wasn't allowed to negotiate prescription drug prices with Big Pharma, it was shocking. It was like somebody was a really unbelievably good lobbyist. Somebody lives in a multi-million-dollar townhouse in D.C. based on just that one piece of legislation that banned, Medicare from negotiating with Big Pharma. The Big Pharma lobbyist lives in a freaking mansion just for that one thing he did. But that's all off. That bet is over.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. As president, I will work in partnership with industry to build the housing we need, both to rent and to buy. We will take down barriers and cut red tape, including at the state and local levels. And by the end of my first term, we will end America's housing shortage by building 3 million new homes and rentals that are affordable for the middle class. And we will do that together. We will do that together. And we will make sure those homes actually go to working and middle class Americans, not just investors. Because, some corporate landlords, some of them buy dozens, if not hundreds of houses and apartments. Then they turn them around and rent them out at extremely high prices. And it can make it impossible then for regular people to be able to buy or even rent a home. Some corporate landlords collude with each other to set artificially high rental prices, often using algorithms in price-fixing software to do it. It's anti-competitive, and it drives up costs. I will fight for a law that cracks down on these practices. We also know that as the price of housing has gone up, the size of down payments have gone up as well. Even if aspiring homeowners save for years, it often still is not enough. So in addition, while we work on the housing shortage, my administration will provide first-time home buyers with $25,000 to help with the down payment on a new home.
Wow. That's amazing. That's quite an ambitious progressive plan. That is real populism is what that is. That is an amazing thing. Now, I will tell you that in New York, some of what she is suggesting goes nationwide is already on. I mean, it's already happened. The idea that in the East Bronx, okay, there's 7,000 new apartments, housing units, as they refer to them in New York, because, you know, we live vertically there. That are being tax subsidized, that are being incentivized to be built for people, affordable housing as affordable housing, not as, $1 million, $2,000 a square foot housing, which is very typical in New York City. So in the Bronx, they're building a 7,000 unit bunch of buildings. I think 1,400 to 1,700, you could check me, you could Google it if you're interested, are going to be set aside for low-income rent-stabilized units so that everybody can move into this building and have housing. There is a reason why housing is so expensive in this country, and it is because first of all, after the housing crisis that we had, investors came, banks came, and they bought people's houses. And that is why neighborhoods like mine went from an owner neighborhood to a renter neighborhood. The people who owned their houses were foreclosed on because they were told a bad appraisal number. They were lied to, and they were told that their $350,000 house was really a $700,000 resale, and that they should borrow up to $750,000 and build a pool or invest in a business or just take the money out of your house. And interest rates are so low and blah. And people did it, and then they found out that when the market crashed, that it was all a lie. And here they were on the hook for $700,000 with, equity, not even equity, but a house that was worth $350,000 in the end. And so the banks foreclosed on them, took their houses. The banks then rented to people. And a neighborhood of home ownership became a neighborhood of rental units where you used to know all your neighbors, and now you don't. You don't know hardly anybody anymore because they're in and out. They're on a lease. They're moving in for a year or 2 years, and then they're out. It's crazy. So what she's proposing is to incentivize through our tax code prioritizing the building of affordable housing, number one. And number two, making sure people can be subsidized in the purchasing of their first home. Just for first-time home buyers. This isn't for every home buyer. Wouldn't be, I couldn't do it. I already have a house, and before this house, I had another house. Right. And so I'm not going to be eligible, but this is for young families. This is for, people just striking out on their own. This is for people that are trying to, they say we're not family friendly. This is the most family friendly thing you could possibly invest in is people buying a home. Because when they're looking to buy a home, it suggests they need more bedrooms. It suggests that a one-bedroom apartment isn't going to do it for them because she's pregnant or because they want to adopt or because they're doing in vitro and they're going to need a nursery or they're going to need 2 bedrooms because they have a kid and they need a bedroom for, the second. It's a very family-friendly policy. And I know people are just, going to, I know what this guy's going to say. Chris in Missouri. May I help you?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be for a free $25,000 to buy your first home? I mean, it's something that would be very popular.
Right.
But all you have to do is look at what's happened with federal grants for higher education and what it's done to tuition costs to see what's going to happen to home costs.
Yes, but this is something that people actually get subsidized to do. Like, I don't know, big oil gets subsidies. Why aren't we giving subsidies to young families if we want to?
Well, Pell Grants aren't subsidies. I mean, Pell Grants
did
for education.
Right, and Pell Grants did not make tuition go up. I mean, I got a Pell Grant. I got a Pell Grant back in the 80s, okay? That didn't make
tuition.
So
did I, and what's tuition back in the 80s compared to what it is now?
Yeah,
it's more than double inflation.
Well, that has nothing to do with Pell Grants. I mean, you don't get a Pell Grant to go to Harvard, do you? No.
I went to one of the top 20 universities in the country, and I had Pell Grant.
And how much?
Washington University in St. Louis.
And how much did the Pell Grant cover?
$2,000 a semester.
And how much was it a semester?
$19,000 for tuition.
So your Pell Grant didn't cover it, and it didn't incentivize the raising of the tuition. In fact, it decentivized, because if people had $4,000 to
then why is tuition going up so much if it decentivized? I don't understand how that could be.
I'm not a college graduate. I have no idea why tuition is what it is, but it has nothing to do with a Pell Grant. That's for sure.
It has to do with government intervention.
It has nothing to do with a Pell Grant. I would imagine it has more to do with student loans and that whole industry of lending to people to go to college, you know, that if you could borrow $40,000, then they would charge you $50,000. Has nothing to do with a $4,000 Pell Grant to pay for a $19,000 tuition.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, so this is interesting. It took 2 seconds to actually Google why colleges are so expensive, why tuitions have gone up the way that they have. And the answer is because Republicans have cut government support for colleges and universities. They have cut education spending. Okay? You know what's so interesting to me, though? Whenever you speak about, balancing the inequality in wealth in this country, it will always include taking money from the wealthiest who are subsidized. You know, Amazon is subsidized. Why would Amazon be subsidized? It is. I mean, I looked it up. It's like 5,823,700. No, it's 5 billion. 5,823,705,430. I mean, these are huge numbers here. Boeing is subsidized $15 billion. Intel is subsidized $8 billion. Ford $7 billion. General Motors. But whenever we talk about subsidizing ourselves, whenever we talk about subsidizing our families or home ownership or, children, whenever we talk about child tax credits or anything at all, for us, people are so quick to say, we can't afford us. We can't afford to give us. We can't afford to take care of us. We can only afford to take care of Boeing. We can only afford to take care of Amazon. We can only afford to take care of Elon Musk. We can only subsidize him. This one guy, because he's smarter than all of us put together. I mean, it's so sad and sick. But it's like I said before I went to the call, I knew that there was going to be an immediate call, a knee jerk that said we can't afford it. We cannot take care of ourselves before we take care of, the people that we subsidize, like Texas Instruments. I mean, can you believe that? That is crazy. But the Republicans have stopped subsidizing education in this country, higher education. The demand for a college degree has increased, and the support for it has decreased. So what happened? We grew an entire industry called the student loan industry. And they started making these massive loans to people who wanted to go to schools that were increasing tuition. And they ended up in debt in Huck. They ended up, they don't even have a house and they're $100,000 in debt. At least when I was $100,000 in debt, I had a house. I had a $98,000 house. That's what I bought. $98,000 house. And, I think I put, I don't even think I had $10,000. Maybe I did. Maybe I had exactly that, $9,800, 10%. Okay. And so I owed the rest, but at least I had a house. People are going to college and they're in debt for $100,000 and they don't have a house. That's crazy. So there's your explanation. The idea that we can't subsidize our lives, that we can't prioritize our children, we can't prioritize our education, we can't prioritize our health care, we can't prioritize, healthy lives, people that are getting medical. This is what Donald Trump said yesterday. This is so telling. This is so interesting.
You're not going to be allowed. You're all going to be thrown into a communist system. It's a communist system. You're going to be thrown into a system where everybody gets health care.
You're going to be thrown into a system where communists, where everybody gets health care. That's communism. You understand that? That's communism. You know what's so interesting? He didn't always feel this way, see? No, he sat and did a full-on interview with Larry King where he said, if you want to make America great, you have to have health care for everybody.
Patients' Bill of Rights. You mentioned health care as one of the social issues. You for it?
I think you have to have, and again, I said I'm conservative. Generally speaking, I'm conservative, and even very conservative. But I'm quite liberal and getting much more liberal on health care and other things. I really say, what's the purpose of a country if you're not going to have defense and health care? If you can't take care of your sick in the country, forget it. It's all over. I mean, it's no good. So I'm very liberal when it comes to health care. I believe in universal health care. I believe in whatever it takes to make people well and better.
So you believe, then, it's an entitlement of birth?
I think it is. It's an entitlement to this country, and too bad the world can't be, in this country. But the fact is, it's an entitlement to this country if we're going to have a great country.
Oh, I see. And then yesterday,
You're not going to be allowed. You're all going to be thrown into a communist system. It's a communist system. You're going to be thrown into a system where everybody gets health care.
That's so fascinating that as soon as he got money, as soon as he started taking money from, corporate interests, all of a sudden he didn't think that health care was, something that every American should have. Then all of a sudden he thought it was communism. The money really does pay for what it gets. And on his part, they paid, and now they will never, ever have to lower their costs because Donald Trump will do nothing to lower your cost of living. Nothing. In fact, the reason why we had an inflationary cycle, the reason why is because he let the supply chains break. Okay, that's number one. And number two, when the economy was open, when the economy finally got opened up, there was such a backlog. Demand was greater than supply. Prices increased. As soon as Joe Biden was able to open the economy, that's when inflation started, right? Because there was demand. There was such uber demand because people hadn't been able to leave their houses. People hadn't been able to fly. People haven't been able to drive, really. There was no place to go, right? And so oil, he touts, the $1.87 a gallon. You never really want to see $1.87 a gallon. You know why? Because that means we have no economy. That means people aren't doing anything. They're not going anywhere. They're not, flying any place. There's no demand for jet fuel. There's no demand for, gasoline. That's why the shelves were empty, and that's why, and there was supply chain break. You remember we couldn't get chicken? Do you remember that? No one could get a chicken cutlet. You couldn't get a breast. You couldn't get a wing. Yeah, it was horrendous, right? And so all of a sudden the economy opened up and there was greater demand than there was supply. That's normal economics, okay? Supply and demand, when they don't match up, one or the other is going to, give. So we started paying more for everything, and they liked it, the corporate interests, the subsidized ones, the subsidized, Hormels, and the subsidized, Purdue's. They loved it. And they didn't want to let go of that kind of profit. They're making 20% profit. Who makes 20% profit? Who does it? And remember the other day I was telling you about AI, and AI is actually, pricing groceries to see what your cutoff is for taking something off the shelf. We're being gouged now, and we actually could do something about it. We can invest in ourselves. We can subsidize affordable housing. We could build, if they could build 7,000 units in the Bronx with a subsidized program, why couldn't we build 3 million houses in America for people who are middle class? Why couldn't we do that? Because so many people are going to go, do you know what that would do to the price of housing? Yes, that's why it matters who you let buy these properties. That's why it matters that you exclude investors from purchasing these things. And also you have some income ceiling where people can't purchase these things. They do it in New York all the time. You have rent-controlled apartments in New York. You have affordable housing in New York. But there's a form you have to fill out, and you have to show your W-2s, and you can't make more than X amount and qualify to move into this apartment, which might be in a glorious building. This is one of the things that pissed Trump off so bad. He bought an apartment building on Central Park South, okay, the south end of Central Park. Beautiful spot, great spot. It wasn't Central Park West. It wasn't Central Park, on the east side either. It was the south side of Central Park. Still glorious with a complete long view of Central, a fabulous place. But he was pissed because people were living in that building under rent control rules, and he wanted them out. He wanted all those rent-controlled apartments in his control. And so he didn't fix anything. He let rodents go. He didn't even have pest control in those buildings. He didn't have, anybody go in like the Orkin man. He didn't fix ceilings. He didn't fix the boiler. He didn't fix anything. He let the electricity go into disrepair so people would have to leave because it was a fire trap. That's what he did. That's who he is. We can invest in ourselves, Mr. Missouri man. You have to believe that we're worth it. You have to believe that Pell Grants that you used that covered a smidgen of your, I went to a community college, so it pretty much covered my tuition because I went to a community college. But even the investment in community college has been rolled back by the GOP. The amount of investment in education has been cut off at the knees by the GOP, and that is why tuition has gone sky high. That and the loan industry. Oh, so you want to go to a good school? Okay, well, so the tuition has gone up because they have to make up for the lack of investment by the government. Feds have, pulled up the, red carpet for education. And the demand for education is so high right now. So you'll pay $40,000. That's what we decide you'll pay. Well, I don't have $40,000. I have, $4,000 in Pell Grants. Well, go borrow it because somebody else will. And they'll get in. And that's what happened. And that's why tuition went up. And I, it's horrible.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
All right, everybody. So everybody always asks, why doesn't Free Speech TV advertise? Like CNN does and MSNBC does and Fox News does. So we have talked to management over there. We've talked them into actually doing an ad campaign. And the reason why they don't do it is because it's very expensive. It's very expensive to buy airtime on somebody else's air to advertise your air. But it happens all the time. So today, instead of $5 Friday, we're looking to raise $5,000. Because the campaign that they've done, they say will cost $10,000. So Joel is a frontline funder, and he has put in the first $5,000. So we need to raise $5,000 today to match Joel, and that's what we're looking to do. So if you can donate now, please do by calling 877-378-8669 or visit us online at freespeech.org. You can use that QR code there, right there on the bottom of your screen. Everything's backwards on TV. On the bottom of your screen. And if we raise $5,000 through your gifts today, we'll get the other $5,000 from Joel, and then we have the $10,000. And suddenly you will see commercials for Free Speech TV on other people's air. And won't that be fun? That'd be great. Actually, I would love to live that long. I would love to see that. I have never worked in a place where they advertised. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't occur to them that that's what broadcasting is. So anyway, good luck to us. Thank you very much for helping out. I know you will, and I appreciate it. Joe on Long Island.
Hi, Randy. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
That clip you played with Trump on Larry King.
Yeah.
I believe that back then his his nephew. He had to pay for his sick nephew's medical, and he didn't want to pay it. That's from his brother, Mary Trump.
Yeah.
That was her brother.
Yeah, I know.
All right. And I believe back then that's why he wanted the United States to have medical.
That's very sick.
But the other thing is, everybody's complaining about taxes and food. Absolutely. I complain all the time. But I always thank the billionaires because for them, that's why we're paying higher taxes. And anybody that's voting for Trump, all right, I ask them all the time, what did he do? Well, he's better than Biden. But what did he do to help you?
He didn't do anything to help anybody. He passed one piece of legislation, and that was a multiple $1 trillion tax cut that benefited the top and the corporate. It did nothing for us, absolutely nothing. So, I mean, that's why they can't, and they go, I don't care. You know what I mean? They'll default to the I don't care, which is what we should do when they start trashing anything that Kamala does. Just say, I don't care. I think we ought to invest in us, okay? If you can afford to give billions of dollars in subsidies to Amazon and very profitable companies, and on the back end they pay no taxes, I think we could do better than that. That's it. That's all I'll say to anybody that asks me that. If I'm just out and about or in mixed company or whatever, you don't want to start like a whole, battle royale. All you do, I mean, you think about what their response to everything we're about to, express. That we want to turn it all around, and we would like the investments to be in us. We would like the investments to be in raising families to lower the cost of living. We would like the investments to be in housing. We would like the investment. What Biden did was he made an enormous amount of investments in science, in batteries, okay, in a tax plan that actually incentivizes making chips here in America. And anything that you want more of, you can incentivize in the tax code by not taxing it so much. And anything you want less of, you can get rid of it by taxing it out of existence. And it's about time that we actually turned the tables on the corporate and said, you know what? Maybe J.D. Vance thinks that we're not pro-family in this country, but he may be misguided about which party has taken the money away from families to give it to corporate, because it wasn't the Democrats. The Democrats don't do an enormous amount of, the Democrats do child tax credits. The Democrats do the ACA. Guess who gets subsidized on the exchanges when you go buy health insurance? On the exchange, the Obamacare exchange. Who gets the subsidy? Does the health insurance company get it, or do you get it to help you pay the premium? That's right, you get it. And I remember during that whole healthcare debate, people were screaming, you can't subsidize people. You can't do that. It'll drive the cost of healthcare sky high. It'll drive the cost of healthcare sky high. We get subsidized to buy health insurance, okay? And it actually drove the cost of health insurance down. Why? Because there was more demand for help. And so the supply of people that were giving care increased because people saw, that it was a good deal. I'm telling you, every time we invest in ourselves, I hear this every single time. Oh, you can't do it. You can only invest in corporate. What happens when you invest in corporate? They get greedy. And then what do they lobby on? The tax code. Because they're making obscene amounts of profits and they don't want to pay a windfall profits tax. Well, too bad. We need to tax you because we're investing in us. We're turning this whole thing around, okay? We're going to flip it on its head. People are going to be healthier. People are going to be wealthier. People are going to have roofs over their heads. Neighborhoods are going to actually be neighborhoods again. People are going to be able to have, as many children as they would like to have. There will be prenatal care for them. The Democrats actually could make that a thing if you elect the House and the Senate and Kamala Harris all at the same time. Know why? Roe v. Wade would be codified. I hate that word, but it would be codified into law. What does that mean? That means no state would be able to deny prenatal care to any pregnancy, whether it's going well, whether it's not going well. The decisions about what to do and how to do it are between a woman and her doctor. And guess what else happens? You incentivize doctors to move back into Alabama, back into Texas, back into Florida, back into Idaho, where OBGYN care is scarce enough. But then they passed these crazy laws that make it impossible for a doctor to even have an office in Idaho, to even have a clinic in Texas, to even have a hospital in Florida that delivers full prenatal care. It makes it impossible. And I mean, it's an amazing thing. And so there's where the supply and demand gets out of whack. And now people have to leave the state, pay cash to go someplace else because it's not even available anymore. Good Lord, man. And then JD Vance has the nads to sit there and tell you that this party of Democrats is the anti-family party. Are you freaking kidding me? They have a problem with food coloring. What? Yes, they have a problem with food coloring. What do you mean? I mean, when people use food coloring or even semi-permanent dye, and they dye their hair like, blue or bright pink or purple, it freaks them out. They don't understand your fashion choice, and therefore you're tagged as a thing. And that thing that they have in their head about you means you are anti-family. Seriously? That's why they always associate, they say it all the time, blue-haired, pink-haired, cat ladies. The nerve of them. The nerve of them. It's endless, but, people relate to it because they go, I'm uncomfortable around people with pink hair. I don't feel safe around people with blue streaks in their hair. Oh, you know what? I don't care how safe you feel around people with blue streaks in their hair. I don't feel safe around you with your concealed carry permit. But guess what? It's the world I live in. I have to function. No, this has nothing to do with being pro-family or anti-family or anything at all, okay? It's a little rebellion, and that's all it is, and it has nothing to do with the way you make policy that works for families in this country.
At RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike, and you say, that's okay, you're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone.
Okay, so you can tell whose side he's on by who he fights for, and he's fighting for the corporate interest here and not the worker when he's speaking to Elon Musk, who gets an enormous amount of subsidies from the United States government, an enormous amount. Batteries and electric vehicles are heavily subsidized. Elon Musk wouldn't be Elon Musk without the government subsidizing Elon Musk. Okay, that's just a fact. Donald Trump is telling you that if everyone got health care, we'd be communist. Really? Is the UK communist? Is Canada a communist country? How about the Netherlands? How about that? Are they communist yet? When did that? I missed it. I missed the whole communist thing. I mean, this is who he fights for, okay? And yesterday, they tried to give him a way to, in his little dog and pony show there with all the groceries that were on a table that he never even discussed, because I don't think he knows what sausage uncooked looks like. I don't think he recognized any of these packages that were on these tables around him yesterday. But he was standing there, and they said, so we heard you, talking to Elon, and you're, like a scab. I mean, you want to fire striking workers, which, by the way, is illegal in this country. You can't intimidate workers. They have the right to strike, right? And he said, I'm for the companies. I'm for them making more profit.
You referenced your conversation with Elon Musk earlier this week. I want to ask you about that. You praise how he treats workers, saying they go on strike, and you say, that's okay, you're all gone, so every one of you is gone. Are you really comfortable with companies threatening to fire workers who go on strike?
Well, no, I want companies to get workers that are going to love them and work for a wage that lets the company make a profit so they can go and expand.
I want them to get workers that love them. What is this, like slavery? We want you to, love the family that, is giving you the little cabin to live in. I mean, what is that?
Those poor corporations. Wow.
They need workers that love them, Brett.
Man.
They need workers that love them. You love me, though, right?
I do love you. You also you didn't give yourself stock buybacks and don't have a salary of like $1.5 million per quarter.
No. I'm like unbelievable. It's so frightening. So there was a chance for him to say, no, I'm on the side of the workers. I've always been on the side. That's my whole thing is populism. I'm about the forgotten man. But when push came to shove, and he was on Elon's little recorded deal there, he commiserated with you. Oh, I love when you fire people. His entire brand that you know him for is on the TV, firing people. That's who he is. It's what he does. He fires people. He doesn't pay them. And then if they complain, he sues them. He sues them. They're trying to get paid for delivering windows, or they're trying to get paid for painting the joint, or they're trying to get paid for, doing a molding work for him, or they're trying to get paid because they have the pesticide contract in his building, right? And they've just done, 20 floors, and treated it, and here's my bill, and then he doesn't want to pay it. And then he turns around and he sues you for having the nerve to even ask for. I mean, come on. And there he is, saying what he's going to fight for and who he fights for. He wants corporations to make profits. And if we did health care for everybody, it would be we'd be living in a communist country. Just make a note of it. That's all. Just make a note of it. Kevin in Texas.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Boy, Vice President Harris is going to make a great president.
She sure is.
Great show also. I get mad at myself because as I'm on hold and I'm listening to the program, I forget what I'm actually calling in for.
Yeah, it happens.
Or I want to make or more comments than the end. I don't stick to the program. What is that? OCD or
no?
Attention.
It's not. You don't have ADD. Okay. It's it's a occupational hazard. What should we say?
you correct. My emotions get in the way of my thoughts sometimes.
So I think you were calling because we actually ask you what you're calling about when you call, so I can remind you. You were calling about how Republicans shot down anti-gouging bill.
Correct. And on I believe it was 197 Republicans that voted against the price gouging bill.
Well, it was an anti-gouging bill, and yes, almost every Republican voted to let the gouging continue.
Correct. And
now, if they don't think that there was gouging going on, then they had nothing to lose by voting for a bill that would prevent gouging, right? If there is no gouging, what are you worried about? But if there is gouging, let's stop it. They were like, oh, no, we don't want to stop the gouging. These are our donors.
As a matter of fact, I believe it actually passed, but it's sitting in the Senate, and Schumer won't bring it up because obviously the Republicans will all vote against it.
There's a whole bunch of stuff sitting in the Senate, okay?
Correct, and also the
immigration package. Yeah.
There was a border funding bill
That's
that was
what I'm
going to
saying.
give,
yeah.
And every single one of these Republicans voted against it. But now you see them on all the TV programs. Oh, the border, they blame it on President Biden and Vice President Harris. That's all it's repetitive.
You know what it reminds me of? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Lucy and the football. It reminds me of Peanuts, right? It reminds me of every single time these Republicans fall for the same damn play. They fall for the same trick. They put the football down, right? And they say they're going to do something on immigration, and then they pull the football away, and then they blame Charlie Brown for falling for it over and over and over.
That is a great analogy. One other thing I'd like to see President Biden go start Brandon on Louis DeJoy, isn't it the postal guy? fire him and then charge him for destruction of government property. Didn't he destroy all those vote counting machines at the post office? Hey, the Supreme Court gave immunity. Let's see him go Dark Brandon on this guy. Get him out.
I think he went Dark Brandon on the Republican Party. Truly, I do. I think that this is a very strange conclusion I've come to, and I have nothing to support it. But I really do believe that Joe Biden knew he wasn't going to run for a second term, led Donald Trump down the path that he was going to be running against Joe Biden, right? And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris all knew that it was going to be Kamala Harris instead of Joe Biden. And that's why I think Nikki Haley, she was the key that unlocked that door to my weird imagination that this could be true. Because she said she knew that it was going to lead to a President Kamala Harris. How did she know that?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, thank you so much for that intro. Okay, so here's the deal. We have talked the management at Free Speech TV into advertising Free Speech TV and letting people know that Free Speech TV is a thing, that it's been here for 25 years. They've never, ever advertised Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV never did because it's expensive. And they like to put, they don't have a big budget. I think their budget is $4 million a year for all of these shows, all of them, right? And for all the technology that you need and all the personnel and everything that's required, plus the place that they, have in Denver, the actual office, which is not fancy. Trust me, I've been there a billion times. It's just a very basic place. And so they agreed that they would try. And they're going to put $10,000 on the air in advertising. Now, we have frontline funders, and we had a guy named Joel who said, okay, here's what we'll do. I'll do $5,000 toward the $10,000 for the advertising budget. If the viewers do their part and do the $5,000 to make it 10, I'll do the 5. So that's where we're at today. So we want you to, think about whether or not you'd like to see Free Speech TV grow in this manner by advertising. If that's you and you're up for it, then please do donate now at 877-378-8669. Of course, you can go to freespeech.org and donate that way. And then there's the texting thing, which is super, super, super easy. You just text to 44321, the letters FSTV, and it'll get you a secure link. And you can do whatever you feel comfortable doing. So thank you very much. We hope to have an ad campaign up and running right after the Democratic National Convention, which is Monday, everybody, Monday. And this is going to be some black girl magic. Not just Kamala. For the first time, the majority of the executives, and I don't even know if I should call them executives because they're, sort of like campaign managers, Donna Brazil, like those guys, instead of working in the background, which they've always done at every convention I've ever been to, Democratic. I've been to Republicans too, which is, really Michael Flatley and the Flatley dancers without Michael Flatley? Great. Kid Rock? Are you kidding? Yeah, their entertainment is just, it's legion, everybody. Anyway, this is the first Democratic National Convention where the black girls Donna Brazil's been doing this for 23 years. She ran the Clinton campaign, okay? They are actually putting themselves out front, and they're going to be in leadership positions giving us this convention. And I think this is going to be one that will be transformative with the way that we see conventions, with the way that conventions are done, with the staging and the just all of it is going to, because they have so much riding on it, that they said that they are going to double check and triple check and make sure all the T's are crossed 3 times over, triple check all the I's are dotted. I mean, they're very excited, but they're also feeling the pressure. So if you wanted to support the Democratic National Convention, just make sure you watch it. Just make sure you're around for it. Make sure that it's something that you talk about with your friends and that you can, quote. Because Kamala's speech is going to be one for the ages. Okay, there's no doubt about that. And then Biden is, on Monday night, Biden is going to be honored, and he's going to give probably the last national audience that he will ever have. Just a farewell. I'm guessing the passing of the torch kind of a thing. And it's like I was just saying, I really do believe, because I've had time to look at this, and I've had time to consider this. I'm not saying I can prove this. And, when I can't prove something, I tell you, it's just my opinion. And this is just my opinion. But it feels to me like Joe Biden really never intended to run for a second term, that he always viewed himself as a transitional candidate. It's what he said he would be. He said he would be somebody that was a bridge to the new generation, a bridge to the next generation of presidents and of Congress members and of senators, right? And I think that he began. I don't think anybody could have done that badly at a debate. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you go look at the debate between Biden and Trump again, it's just almost impossible that Joe Biden, who showed up the next day at NATO and talked extemporaneously, meaning without a teleprompter, about foreign policy in an intellectual, experienced manner, which he did for over an hour, was the same guy we saw the day before. I mean, it breaks my brain to even, and of course, the only excuse that we ever got, or the only explanation, I don't even want to say it's an excuse that we ever got about Joe Biden's performance from Joe Biden is that he didn't feel well. Now, in this strange way, I think that was all planned, and that it was planned to give Donald Trump the false sense of security that Donald Trump had enjoyed up until the torch passing. And I think it was always intended to be this way, right? And this way we would have a truncated presidential race with Kamala Harris coming in with 100 days left. Doesn't it strike you as interesting, at the very least, that she was so well prepared and hit the ground running, and that, outside of picking her vice presidential candidate, which I'm sure she did not do until she was, passed the torch, officially, because you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't tell anybody else. You wouldn't tell anybody else what you and the president were doing if this is what Doug Brandon and Kamala were doing. And so it was just so interesting, though, that once she picked her vice president, and she picked so brilliantly, because everyone has fallen in love with Tim Walz. Everybody, he's either the dad you had and you miss, or he's the dad you have and you love, or he's the dad you wish you had. Either way, the dad energy coming off this guy is incredibly relatable and likable, and it's like goodness and light. And they changed the entire mood. I've been calling like the homework things like mood swing and, future's so bright, I got to wear shades and, things like, because the entire shift in emphasis went from democracy is in trouble, democracy is on the line, which it is, but to joy and to an embracing of the future and a forward motion. And, like I said, the elections are always about the future, and they made theirs about the future. And they're telling you the economic plan for the future and how we can invest in ourselves. And that, we give billions and billions and billions of dollars in subsidies to the richest, most profitable corporations. And yet the idea of a $5,000-$6,000 child tax credit is somehow can't do it, can't have it, can't afford it, can't make that happen. Are you kidding me? Of course we could do it. It's all about priorities, right? But I really believe that this was baked into the campaign cake. I don't know what else to say about how did it happen? You know what I mean? Like, how did we get... And of course, they'll say it was the debate, but he was fine the next day. He was completely fine. Right?
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Finally, there's one more way I will help families deal with rising costs, and that's by letting you keep more of your hard-earned money. Under my plan, more than 100 million Americans will get a tax cut, and we will do this by restoring 2 tax cuts designed to help middle-class and working Americans: the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. Millions of Americans with children got to keep more of their hard-earned income. We know this works and has a direct impact on so many issues, including child poverty. We know it works. So as president, I'll not only restore that tax cut, but expand it. We will provide $6,000 in tax relief to families during the first year of a child's life. Now think what that means. Think what that means. That is a vital, vital year of critical development of a child. And the cost can really add up, especially for young parents who need to buy diapers and clothes and a car seat and so much else.
Really, it is an amazing thing to watch new parents have to buy everything. And yes, there are some gifts, but how many onesies can you actually? Well, as many as you can give. You'll go through them. It's just a fact. But the car seats and the formula. Remember when there was a formula shortage under Donald Trump? Do you remember any of that? Oh, my God. It was just like, wow. So it's interesting because J.D. Vance said with his, flapping lips that he wants a $5,000 child tax credit.
You've been talking about the concern about the low birth rate in the United States of America, which is well documented. You said people without children should pay higher tax rates than those who have children, and the U.S. should look at lowering income tax rates on women who have multiple children, and you pointed to Hungary as a model for that.
Hungary.
How do you plan to implement that policy?
Well, it's called the child tax credit, and we should expand the child tax credit. If you think about what the child tax credit does... you and the Biden administration agree on the child care tax credit? Well, we think it should be bigger. I think President Trump and I believe in an expanded child tax credit, but we also, importantly, want to actually get this thing done. The child tax credit has languished, thanks to the Biden administration, because Harris has failed to show fundamental leadership.
I mean, the Senate actually blocked the child tax credit, okay? J.D. Vance wasn't there the day that the child tax credit vote came up, but the Republicans, it only takes one person to block a vote, and then you have to overcome a filibuster with 60 votes, right? That's what happened to the child tax credit. They just lie. I mean, they feel so comfortable in the lying lane that it's almost like a gift from Satan, but it's a gift to just lie like that about children. That's why I say Satan. It's really kind of amazing. It truly is a thing. Rhonda and Erie.
Have you ever seen anything like this in your whole life?
No. And I've never seen polls turn around like this. I've never seen people gain so much, independent support in like 3 weeks, a month, whatever it's been. Never.
Listen, I have been watching politics since I was 10 years old, and Shirley Chisholm ran for president. And I have never in my round, brown, estrogen-filled life have ever seen anything like this.
Oh, you're funny.
This is amazing. I tried so hard this last week to get into to get to the DNC because I just wanted to be there.
Yeah.
But it's hard to even put it into words. We have never seen anything like this. I don't think in the history of politics in the United States have we ever seen anything like this.
No.
It's amazing.
It's magic. It is. It's magic. It truly is. And I really do believe that it was more thought about and more, let's say, planned than it seems. Do you know what I'm saying?
You know what?
What?
Mm-hmm. My husband agrees with you.
Really, does he?
he's actually been saying that ever since Joe Biden withdrew. He's been saying that. He was like, there's no way. There is no way. He's like, they have planned this for weeks. And then the more it rolled out and the more it was smooth and coordinated and efficient and, and all of the people were in the right places.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you and him. I think that now I do. I did not think that at first.
Yeah, it didn't dawn on me. I was just too stunned by it. I mean, it was very stunning.
Yeah.
It really was. It was exciting, but it was also, took us, everybody was like, wow, is this really on? This is really happening, But now that I've had a little distance between the initial and what's coming and how it's going, it's yeah. And God love them, as Joe Biden would say, because truly, it was like it was rope-a-dope, right? Where right, where you make Trump think that we're tired, we're old, we can't get through the fight, and let him relax a little bit, and then you send in, the offense, and bam, 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 bye-bye.
Right.
Yeah.
And because his quote unquote campaign is already unorganized, because they were so arrogant, thinking that, he could just go and, stumble over words and, repeat the same thing for an hour and that people were still going to vote for him.
Yep.
It was really easy, I think, for them to do this to him. I mean, he's not a smart man, but he is an arrogant man. And I think that they took advantage of that real character flaw in him to do this, right? So now this contrast between the two candidates, the two candidates at the top of the ticket, and then the contrast now between the two vice presidential candidates, and then even the contrast between the people who are sent out there as spokespeople for both campaigns is so stark.
It is. It is. I agree. I agree with your husband. I think you agree with him too. And so maybe we're right. I don't know. Like I said, I can't prove any of it. Maybe there will be a definitive accounting of something that happened there, down the road. I would buy that book, and yeah.
They're going to be. People are going to be writing books about this for decades.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, have a great weekend and enjoy the convention. We'll reconvene on Monday and
all right.
Watch the magic. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yep, I'll be ready. I have it all planned out.
Love you, Rhonda. See you soon. All right.
All right.
Bye. Bye. So speaking of women, beautiful women, I spoke to one of my most amazing friends from when I was in my 20s, okay? She is a beautiful, never married, childless professional who is in the top tax bracket, a working class Wiccan, a sisterhood member who is currently catless only because she's a tour manager for people you would know whose records you have. And she called Jessica yesterday and told Jessica, you need to call your aunt, you need to call Aunt Randi, and you need to tell her, because it's got to come from one of us, that a person that I loved. And for those of you who remember me as your rock jock here in South Florida, that's a small group of us, but you remember the Saturday night rock and roll party on WSHE, She's Only Rock and Roll. Well, that was my gig. That was my first shift there. That's all I had before I got the afternoon job. And every Saturday night when I came on shift, I would cheat and get off the playlist, and I'd play Rock Me by Great White. In fact, I don't know if you can't see it, but over on that wall, I have a platinum record, and it's from Great White. Okay, they gave me this platinum record for doing what I did to make this platinum selling record. Anyway, Jack Russell, who had the best voice, the best, I mean, just incredible, passed away yesterday, and he was only 63 years old. My rock gods are dying now. My rock gods. But I just his wife's name is Heather. He has a son as well, and I just wanted to tell them that you have my deepest condolences and all my thoughts of the blessing that was being able to go to those shows and being able to sit on the side of the stage and being able to be any part of any of this is so important to me as a person. It's just these memories are embedded in me and in my Catless professional, tour manager, girlfriend. I'll just call her Miss A. She knows who she is. I love you. We had a very long conversation today about all this. We both had our very first almost famous moments, from that movie with Jack Russell. Well, I had one before that with Bon Jovi, but it didn't last a lifetime. But the Jack Russell thing, the Janie Lane, Motley Crue, the almost famous backstage moments going on the road with these people, the Guns N' Roses and all this stuff. It's sad. It's so sad. And yet the memories are so much fun. Do you know what I mean? So thank you for them. And rest in peace, Jack Russell. Rest in peace.